Today, we act as true patriots and do as our forefathers did. We're going to tell the ruling government they suck. From October 2019 to September 2020, the U.S. had spent $778 billion. That is almost double China, India, Russia, and the UK combined. The U.S. can easily afford to cut spending on military and defense to instead put money towards reducing the deficit, improving healthcare and education, and even beginning to save the environment from our own destruction. Today, we will show just how absurd the U.S. defense budget is and present the benefits a budget cut could do. The U.S. has taken pride from Teddy Roosevelt's quote, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Unfortunately, the country has been very quiet and the stick is getting pretty cumbersome. Financially, the military is ineffective, causing massive losses. Besides financial burdens, with its current arms, the U.S. is more than equipped for the extremely slight chance of a conflict. Ukio in the relationship between spending and economic growth in the United States says, each increment of defense spending brings heavier tax burden, a larger government budget deficit, inflation, a decline of social welfare spending, such as expenditures on public health or education, or a combination of them. Pumping money into the military is digging a deeper hole for the country, yet many continue to push for more. It is an endless loop of spending that hurts the people more than many realize. Some may argue that putting money into the military helps grow the economy. Barney Frank in Cut the Military Budget explains, spending on military hardware does produce jobs, but it is one of the most inefficient ways to deploy public funds to stimulate the economy. The jobs created are there as long as there are wars to be fought. It is unsustainable and extremely detrimental to the economy. There is a fairly common belief that wars are not something that should be desired, yet the military-industrial complex continues to push to spend not only money but lives. The U.S. has very small chances of being threatened, and even in time of need, there is more than enough firepower for the country to defend itself. Justin Logan in Best Defense, Beltway Brigadier Robert Kagan is all wrong, states, the U.S. will remain for years the world's largest economy. It accounts for nearly half of the planet's military spending, add in allies with formal treaty commitment to America, and the figure is closer to 70%. We possess near ideal geography with two weak friendly neighbors to the north and the south, and two large moats to the east and the west. America bristles with nuclear weapons. The threat of territorial conquest is zero. The idea of even attempting to directly challenge the U.S. is suicide. If a country did become bold enough to challenge the U.S., then there would not be much of a world left after all the nukes and missiles are fired. Barney Frank backs up the country's safety by saying, if beginning 1 year from now, we were to cut military spending by 25% from its projected levels, we would still be immeasurably stronger than any combination of nations with whom we might be engaged. The country has been controlled by fear-mongering war hawks for so long that many do not understand that we do not need to live in so much fear of other countries anymore. The decades of endless spending has left the country with an excess of new and old defense technology and arms, creating an enormous burden.
So Will's made it really obvious that we spend way too much on our military. And I know he could talk about that for a lot longer, but I'm going to interrupt him to tell you what we actually need to spend the funding on. So basic rights such as equal education and access to good healthcare are not present for many in America right now. By redistributing military funds, these issues can be neutralized. Like I just said, education is being funded unequally, and poorly in America. And better, more equal education for American students will mean more peaceful future generations. Elizabeth C. Nelson, an education researcher at Loyola University of Chicago, found that the median disparity in per pupil expenditures between the wealthiest and the poorest school districts in America is about $12,000 per child. So obviously that's something we can work on. If people are receiving $12,000 a year less than other children for education, that's something that we can put our money towards so that we can actually have equality in our own country before we're trying to help out other countries, right? Policy researcher David A. Tanberg states that the state support of public higher education has rapidly declined relative to total state spending. Much of this decline is due to the rapid growth of things such as Medicaid, which insured 20 million uninsured people so that they could help get health care. And that's a good thing, right? We'd rather be spending our money on healthcare and education than the military, but we actually are taking away funding from our education to make people live longer instead of our military, which has continued to grow each year and is double the size of the second greatest military in the world. Education expert Leah Schaefer states that education seeks to promote individual skills that reject the use of violence and create stronger communities. So the better our education is, the more peaceful people become, because they're learning how to become compassionate and they're learning how to respect others, and that's what comes with better education. Americans suffer every day and they die every day due to a lack of strong health care. With funds taken from the military, American citizens won't die due to poor healthcare funding or the destruction of their basic right to good health. Medical researcher and physician Stephanie Woolhandler, in her Johns Hopkins article Healthcare Reform 2.0, explains that 45,000 Americans die annually due to the lack of health insurance. That's terrible. We're giving money to the military and letting 45,000 people in our own country die every year. Why aren't we giving money to the people in our country so that we can live first before going to other countries to kill more people? In her New York Times article, Janine Interlandi states that the United States remains the only high-income country in the world where such care is not guaranteed to every citizen. I want to make sure you guys understand that the environment is suffering hugely due to America's massive military budget. Military issue specialist Christopher Woody writes in his Business Insider article, cutting military spending would be a boon for the environment as well, since the Pentagon is the single largest consumer of oil and the largest source of greenhouse gases on the planet. And although the Pentagon did state that they actually made climate change a national security issue, if they name it that and they say that they're going to help out with it and try to prevent those issues while they're actually the largest institution to be giving off these gases and creating this problem, that does seem a little bit backwards. Gotta emphasize actually working on the problem. Okay, so over the course of this presentation, we have explained to you the numerous negative effects of our huge spendings on the military, such as inflation, heavier tax burdens, immense harm to the environment, profit from war, and large government spending deficits. We've explained that we have the world's greatest military power by far, even if we were to cut the military spending in half. And yet we continue to raise our spending numbers. Finally, we gave you guys examples of where this money could go to better our society in a much more productive, effective way while not suffering virtually any consequences. These examples were higher public education spending and higher healthcare spending. So, all that we have to say for our country right now is that we have some massive dick energy. We can fuck anybody we want up. Unfortunately, this massive dick energy has not emphasized the country's actual human needs. Once we defund the military, our country might go down from a 14-incher to a 10-incher, but will still be well above the world average. And although that can be important at times, sometimes you gotta have a big dick, we need to focus on the people within our country before we start to move outside first, and then move from there. And that's all we have. Thank you very much.